The Voice of the Soul, Part 2, The Road Seen by the Heart. Charlotte's heart was no longer beating alone. It had become the pulse of an entire community. The cafe was no longer just a business. It had transformed into a space where dreams came alive, a warm sanctuary where struggling youth found hope and connection. Every Thursday evening, Charlotte hosted a gathering she called the Hour of Peace. It wasn't a formal event. It was a safe place for anyone, tired students, jobless parents, elderly people with long-forgotten stories. They didn't just come for coffee. They came to be heard. To them, Charlotte wasn't just a cafe owner. She was a wise woman who spoke with her heart. One rainy evening, a 16-year-old boy named Danny walked in. He was struggling with life. His mother was battling alcoholism, and he was being bullied at school. Quietly sitting in the corner, he pulled a pocket knife from his jacket and began to cry. Charlotte noticed him, gently approached, and sat down beside him. She softly said, "I too carry a wound in my heart. But I learned something. The only way to heal is to open up. Your pain is not your end. It could be your beginning." That night, Danny went home. He put the knife away and came back the next day with a folded piece of paper. On it, written in bold letters, "You changed my destiny." Success wasn't her goal. It was the impact that defined her path. Soon, Charlotte was invited to speak at city council meetings. She became a voice for women, for youth, for the unheard. She urged for the creation of new support centers, not just buildings, but havens for healing. At one meeting, standing before suited officials and blinking microphones, she declared, "Sometimes a cup of tea, a moment of silence, or a caring look can save a life. We don't need to lead with policies. We must lead with the heart." Her words went viral. Schools printed her quotes on posters. Local radio stations replayed her speeches. Therapists quoted her in their sessions. Within a year, she founded Soul Space, a nonprofit organization dedicated to emotional support and mentorship for those who felt forgotten. The centers didn't just offer resources. They offered belonging, humanity, and hope. People came in empty and left with purpose. But the greatest gift of all was the return of lost love. One evening, while autumn rain kissed the windows, Charlotte sat by the cafe's front glass, lost in thought. The bell above the door chimed softly. A woman entered, drenched and trembling. It was her older sister Julia, whom she hadn't seen in 20 years. When her mother died, grief had torn them apart. Julia had spent years searching for her, and finally, destiny led her here, to a small cafe glowing with light in a quiet street. They embraced, wordlessly, for what felt like hours. That night, in between tears and laughter, they rebuilt what time and silence had shattered. Julia soon joined Charlotte's nonprofit, becoming the new program coordinator. Who is Charlotte today? Charlotte is not just a businesswoman. She is a leader guided by empathy, a healer of the unseen, a messenger of renewal. Her organization now operates in 27 cities across the country. Her Thursday Hour of Peace is streamed to thousands. She speaks not for applause, but for change. People know her motto by heart: don't hide your wound. Heal the world with it. The Voice of the Soul, Part 1, The Silence After the Storm. Charlotte was only 16 when she faced the kind of pain that breaks a person quietly. Her mother, her only emotional anchor, had passed away after a long battle with illness. That day, the walls of their small apartment seemed to close in, filled not with echoes, but with suffocating silence. Her father, a construction worker, was away most of the time, and when he came home, grief hung over him like a heavy coat he couldn't take off. Charlotte would return from school to a house that no longer felt like home. Her only comfort was an old voice recorder with her mother's laugh saved on it, and a collection of worn family photographs. At school, Charlotte wasn't popular. She didn't wear the trendiest clothes or talk loudly in class. She sat in the back, quietly drawing in her notebook, hoping to disappear. Her classmates didn't see her pain. They only saw someone different. One day, during a school assembly, a boy looked at her thrift store jacket and whispered loudly, "Did she walk out a time machine from the 80s?" Laughter echoed through the auditorium. Charlotte felt like the walls were collapsing. She ran to the bathroom and cried for hours. That night, with tear-soaked cheeks and a trembling heart, she made a decision. She had to leave. The Voice of the Soul, Part 2, A New Town, a New Beginning. 2 years later, when she turned 18, Charlotte used the small amount of savings her mother had left her. With her father's reluctant blessing, she moved to a small town in Vermont. She rented a room in a shared boarding house and got a job washing dishes at a quiet cafe on the edge of town. She didn't speak much to anyone. She kept her head down and worked hard. The cafe's owner, Mary, a kind-hearted woman in her 50s, watched Charlotte quietly for weeks before walking over and saying, "There's a quiet light in you, Charlotte. You're not just a dishwasher. You're someone people want to talk to." Charlotte, hesitant but touched, accepted Mary's offer to train at the front counter. To her surprise, the customers loved her calm demeanor and thoughtful words. Over time, they began to open up to her. She wasn't just serving coffee, she was serving comfort. Within months, Mary promoted her to cafe manager. It was the first time Charlotte ever felt seen. This is the story of a girl named Charlotte and the life that shaped her into a voice of strength. From a young age, Charlotte experienced deep loss. Her mother passed away when she was just a child. Her father, though loving, spent most of his time working long hours to provide for them. The house was quiet, filled with absence more than presence. In middle school, Charlotte was a quiet, thoughtful girl, often the target of mockery by older students. She lacked self-confidence, lived in fear of judgment, and struggled to see her own worth. She felt invisible, like a shadow passing through hallways filled with laughter that didn't include her. But one day, something broke inside her, not from pain, but from a need to survive. She packed her few belongings and made the hardest decision of her life. She left home. Eventually, Charlotte moved to a new city, far from where she grew up. She found a small job and soon began managing a local cafe. She knew no one in this unfamiliar town, yet something about the silence felt like an open page, a chance to rewrite her story. The cafe became more than a workplace. It was a space where Charlotte slowly rebuilt herself, step by step. She began to greet regular customers, listen to their stories, and smile again. Bit by bit, confidence replaced fear. One day, she organized a small community event, inviting locals to gather, share stories, and connect. Standing before a crowd for the first time, Charlotte spoke with a trembling voice, but also with truth. She invited people to unite, to believe in themselves, and to support one another. That evening changed everything. The cafe grew into a community hub, not just a place for coffee, but a place for healing, growth, and belonging. Charlotte, once shy and unsure, became a woman ready to face new paths with courage. But life still had more to teach her. One afternoon, a man collapsed right outside the cafe. Charlotte ran to him, held his hand, and stayed with him until the ambulance arrived. Sadly, he didn't make it. That moment shook her deeply. It reminded her of life's fragility and the importance of living with purpose. From that day forward, Charlotte began to truly value her voice and the platform she had. She became involved in charity work, partnering with local organizations to support those in need. Her mission was no longer just personal, it became collective. She started speaking publicly, sharing her story, reminding people that pain is not the end of a person, but often the beginning of strength. Her words reached not only the hearts of her listeners, but began transforming lives. Charlotte's life had restarted, and with the power she discovered within herself, she helped countless others begin again too. The Voice of the Soul, Charlotte's Journey of Transformation. Part 1. Living in the Depths of Hopelessness. Charlotte was only 16 when she suffered a devastating loss. The day her mother passed away after a long illness, her world crumbled. Her father, a construction worker, came home late every night, worn and quiet. They lived in a small apartment, which became even more silent after her mother's passing. Every afternoon, Charlotte would come home from school and sit in silence, staring at the walls. Her only companions were old photographs and a voice recorder with her mother's voice saved on it. School wasn't any easier. Her classmates referred to her as just the unknown girl. No one seemed to notice her uniqueness, her depth, or her quiet intelligence. The hardest moment came during a school event, when a boy looked at her clothes and laughed. Where did she come from? The 1980s? Laughter echoed all around. For the first time, Charlotte cried in front of everyone. That night, with her heart shattered, she made a decision. She would leave the city. Part 2. A new life, a new city, a new beginning. At 18, with a small amount of money left by her mother and her father's reluctant blessing, Charlotte moved to a quiet town in the state of Vermont. She rented a room in a boarding house and got a job as a dishwasher at a local cafe. At first, she stayed quiet, hiding from the world. But one day, the cafe's owner, Mary, a kind-hearted 55-year-old woman, said to her, "There's something special in you. You're not just a dishwasher. You know how to connect with people." Mary then offered her the chance to start interacting with customers. Charlotte hesitated but decided to try. Within months, she became known for her gentle spirit and kind words. People looked forward to seeing her every day. Eventually, Mary promoted her to cafe manager, Charlotte's first real success in life. Part 3. Impacting her community, finding her voice. One rainy afternoon, Charlotte heard a child screaming nearby. A flash flood had trapped a little boy's leg in a street drain. While others watched in panic, Charlotte rushed to him, reached into the water, and pulled him to safety. The local newspaper wrote about the event with the headline, "Cafe Girl Becomes Town Hero." Soon after, schools invited her to speak to students. During one of her talks, Charlotte said, "I know what it feels like to be alone, mocked, and invisible. But when you start believing in yourself and help others, life begins to change." Her words moved many to tears. A youth center was later opened, and Charlotte was asked to lead it. Part 4. A woman who created her own destiny. 5 years later, Charlotte opened her own cafe. But this was more than a place to eat. It became a center for hope, kindness, and new beginnings. Every week, she gathered young people, shared stories from her own life, and gave motivational talks. One day, her father came to town. When he saw what his daughter had built, tears welled up in his eyes. During an event at her cafe, he stood before a crowd and said, "I'm proud of this girl. She healed her own wounds and helped others heal theirs too." The lesson. Charlotte's story teaches us that no matter how dark life may get, when you believe in yourself, open your heart, and lead with kindness, even the darkest days can become light again.